بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الواقف العربين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشيخ اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علمك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we studied the arguments to prove that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is powerful and free. Qadir Mukhtar. So we mentioned that because this alam, which is the creation of Allah, this universe, is hadith. And you remember, I don't want to repeat everything. Hadith, we said, is something which is preceded by non-existence or by another thing. We said this alam is hadith, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadim. There is no way to explain this unless if we believe in the fact that Allah is free. Yeah? Because if He is not mukhtar, His action and Himself should be together. Like sun and shining, fire and burning. There cannot be separation. You cannot imagine one of them is qadim, the other is hadith. But in the case of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is eternal, but the world is not eternal. So there must be an element of will. He decided to create alam in a certain time. So this is everything we discussed last week, alhamdulillah. Now we move on to the next point about qudrah, and this is by itself a very important discussion about the scope of His power. What is the scope of His power? Some theologians from other schools of Islam had the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power would not include everything. Because of some problems that they had in mind, they thought if we say Allah's power includes everything, it would not be a good idea. For example, some people had the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot do bad things. لا يقدر على الشر. Fazil Mirdad rahmatullah alayhi says this is the idea of Thanawiyya, dualist. You know, Thanawiyya dualist, because a dualist is used in many different senses. Here we mean by dualist the one who says that God is creator for the good things, and Satan, for example, or Ahriman is the creator of bad things. So they say God cannot do bad things. Because for them it was not possible to think, how can God do bad things? We say no. God has power for doing everything. If He doesn't do bad things, it's because He doesn't have the will for doing bad things. It's not that His power is limited. Because everything in this world is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have any other source. We don't have any other creator. It's wrong to think that Satan is a creator and Allah is another creator. Sometimes I say to people that I think we exaggerate the power of shaitan. When you listen to some people and they talk about the world, even about human world, about politics, so all these things, the message you get is as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has only control over part of the world, half of the world, or for some people, most of the world is run by bad people, by satanic people. This is the message you get. But this is wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has control over everything. And shaitan or Satan cannot be taken as a person who is controlling half of the world. Satan is a very weak agent, very weak factor. I mean, he is doing something, but it's very weak. إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. Even his planning is not very good. If we are deceived easily, this is not because shaitan is very clever. We are unfortunately not clever. Yeah? Because Allah has introduced shaitan to us, so we know that he's enemy. But still we listen to shaitan. And his plans are all known. What is his plan? It's coming from either, I don't know, position, money, I don't know, sex, all these things. These are the إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. But we make shaitan very big so that we can say, if I do bad things, because there's a big enemy in front of me. If you don't get good mark, what do you say? You say exam was difficult. You don't say I didn't do mubahisa, I didn't study. You say exam was very difficult. Now we fail, we say, it was very difficult. How can I stand against shaitan? Shaitan. But shaitan is nothing. This world is fully run by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, under the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shaitan is a thief. Imagine you have a king who runs the country, he has an army, he has police, he has ministries, all these things, and there is a thief. This thief cannot do that much. If you want to join the thief, you can do mistake, but the world is under the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and khair and light and guidance is the main thing. Darkness is sight. Even darkness cannot fight light. Can darkness fight light? As soon as darkness goes to fight light, it disappears. So, shaitan is not someone that is responsible for creating shar or part of the world. Anyway, this Sanawi had this idea that Allah creates half of the world and Ahriman or Satan does the second half. So the scope of the power of Allah for them is very limited. Okay? Some people had other types of view. Inshallah, I will explain it from the text because I don't want to make it very difficult now. Basically, the idea that some theologians had was they divided actions into some actions that suit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some actions that don't suit Allah, and they said Allah has no power over these things. We say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power for doing everything which is possible, everything which is contingent, all the mumkinat. If something is impossible, then that is its problem. For example, can Allah make 2 + 2 5? No. Not because Allah's power is limited. This is by itself impossible. Allah is, we say in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. Shay. There must be something that makes sense. If it is contradiction, so it's not shay. Can Allah make a stone that He Himself cannot lift? This is contradiction. Can Allah make a creature bigger than Himself, greater than Himself? These are impossible things, so we are not talking about these things. In Aqaid, I gave you this lesson that if someone says, you are a very good professor of mathematics, so show me how to make 2 + 2 5. If he says, I cannot make 2 + 2 5, it doesn't mean that he is not a good professor of mathematics. You are expecting something childish. Pardon? The question was right. Not that he is not capable. You cannot say, okay, I don't want to take lesson from you because you cannot make this. So his power includes every possible or contingent thing. Even if it is something which is bad, the power includes that, but he doesn't do it. Okay? He has such a good essence that from him bad things would not come. But not that he is incapable. Okay? So something that I think we mentioned when we were doing aqaid, that sometimes something has imkan dhati. Essentially is possible, but there is no imkan wuqu'i. Means it cannot be issued from God. Okay? So let's see the text of Allama Halli rahmatullah alayhi first, and then we go for commentary. وَقُدْرَتُهُ يَتَعَلَّقُ بِجَمِيعِ الْمَقْدُورَاتِ. His power belongs to all maqdurat, everything which is possible to be done. Maqdur means something which is possible of being done. Something that qudra can belong to it. Is it clear? Why? Why his power can include everything which is doable? Maqdur means something doable. لأن العلة المحوجة إليه, because that reason which makes something in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, muhwaj means creates haja. Yeah? What is the reason, what is the cause for making things needy? Why they don't need Allah? Yal imkan, their contingency. Yes, because they are mumkin, they need Allah. Several times I talked about this, that because they need essentially God, and this need cannot be separated from them. Remember we said, even when they are created, they need God because imkan is with them. Some people had the idea that we need God only for coming to existence. After that, we don't need. But we say no. Even after we come to existence, still we are mumkin. Mumkin always needs God. You remember the story of building and builder?
Yeah.
So the cause for having need in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is imkan, is contingency, and the relation of the essence of God with everything is equal. You cannot exclude some. Everything contingent has the same relation with God. It means that if God is able to do some of them, God can do everything. Because they're all mumkin. فَيَكُونُ قُدْرَتُهُ عَامَّةً. So his power is inclusive. Inshallah, we continue after salawat. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Are you ready for an exciting session?
Yes, we are.
Is it ready? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. We talked about Allama Halli's text, and now we go to the commentary. قدرته يتعلق بجميع المقدورات. His power belongs or applies to all possible things, all doable things. أقول. Now Fazil Miqdad says This is my explanation. لما ثبت كونه قادرا في الجملة. After proving that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is powerful, fil jumlah means we proved it as a principle. Now we want to see the extent, the scope. Yeah, fil jumlah means as a principle. But now let's see to what extent. شرع في بيان عموم قدرته. After proving that, now Allah Mahalli started explaining generality or inclusiveness of His power. وَقَدْ نَازَعَ فِيهِ الْحُكَمَاء. Fazil Mirdad says, by saying that Allah has power to do every doable thing, He has disagreed with few groups of people. Naza'a, nizam is to debate, to
Jidal.
yes, to disagree. Al-hukama, philosophers. Okay? Philosophers, of course, this is a Fazil Mirdad's way of explaining this. Philosophers have a rule that, inshallah, you study in philosophy, قاعدة الواحد, the rule of the one. الواحد لا يصدر عنه إلا الواحد. They say when you have a cause which is one, in every aspect is one, is simple, is basit, what can be issued, what can be created, what can be originated by that is also one. The multiple or al-kathir cannot come from al-wahid, from the one. Al-wahidu la yasduru anhu illa al-wahid. This is a very important rule in philosophy. Fazil al-Miqdad says that this implies that wajibul wujud does not have the power to do kathir. So it's a limitation. And he says when Allah Mahalli said His power is inclusive, one of the groups that he disagreed with is philosophers, because philosophers believe in Qaidi al-Wahid, therefore they say only one can be issued from one. So the multiple cannot be issued from God. Okay? But philosophers can answer, say that this is not the limit in His power, this is the problem in the multiple coming from the one. But it can be through some effects which stand between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and kathir. Anyway, this is something we discuss in philosophy, inshallah. So, naza'a fihi al-hukama. He has disagreed with hukama haythu qalu, as they said, innahu wahidun, God is wahid, la yasturu anhu illa wahid. God is the one, and one means here basit, the single, the simple, and only wahid can come from it. Also, he disagreed, or you can say the people who disagreed with him, or he disagreed with them, depending on you say it, fa'il or maf'ul, al-thanawiyatu or al-thanawiyata, the people who believe in dualism, because they believe that annahu la yaqdiru ala ash-sharr. They say God does not have power over bad things. Doing bad things is not possible for God. So they also limit his power. The scope of his power is limited. He cannot do evil things. One nizam. Nizam, here is a name of a person, famous person in Kalam. Nizam in Arabic means system. But here is a name. This person's name was Nizam. He also had the idea that أنه لا يقدر على القبيح. God does not have power for doing ugly things. Shar is evil, Qabi means ugly. Normally Qabi is used for immoral things. Wal-Balkhi, another mutakallim who is known as Balkhi because he was from the city of Balkh, currently in Afghanistan. Please be careful here about the difference between this one and the next one. Balkhi حيث منع قدرته على مثل مقدورنا. Balkhi said it's not possible to say that God's power belongs to things which are similar to what we can do. مثل مقدورنا. مثل means similar. Okay? His power would not belong to something which is similar to what, for example, I can walk, I can drink, I can put things, for example, on desk. Things similar to this are too little to be attributed to God. So he had the idea that Allah's power would not belong to the things which are mithl, which are similar in their type to what we do. Wal Jubbaiyan, the two Jubbais, there are two scholars who are known as Jubbai. They had the idea that it's impossible. Ahala. Ahala means what? They took it to be muhal, they took it to be impossible. Ahala means they considered it to be impossible. You know, in addition to Kalam, you are learning Arabic. So, alhamdulillah, you are learning very fast. I hope you don't forget very fast also. حيث أحال قدرته على عين مقدورنا. What is the difference between this and the previous one? Mithl.
The same.
Mithl and ayn. Mithl means similar, ayn means the same. Exactly the same. So these people had the idea that God's power would not belong to the things that we can do or we do. Exactly the same thing. The previous one was saying about similar things. Okay? Something similar. But all of them are wrong. وَالْحَقُّ خِلَافُ ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ. The truth is opposite to everything they said. They had some misunderstandings, and those caused them to think that God's power should not be said to belong to these things. It's a misunderstanding. You don't need to say, for example, if his power belongs to things that we can do, then he becomes limited. Or if his power belongs to the bad things, he's, for example, he's becoming a bad. No. The power is there, but his will doesn't belong to bad things. Or about things that we do, he has power, but he would not do it directly. He would do it through a system. Vadali. Now let's explain our position and our argument, and then you realize anything other than this is wrong. وَالدَّلِيلُ عَلَى مَدَّعَيْنَاهُ. The argument for what we claimed is this. أَنَّهُ قَدْ انْتَفَى الْمَانِعُ بِالنِّسْبَةِ إِلَى ذَاتِهِ وَبِالنِّسْبَةِ إِلَى الْمَقْدُورِ فَيَجِبُ التَّعَلُّقُ الْعَامِ. He says, The reason for our position is this. As far as his essence is concerned, there is no problem. As far as these actions are concerned, they are possible. Because if it is impossible, we said from the beginning, something which is impossible, his power would not be limited, but they are not doable. Like contradiction, making 2 + 2 5, for example, like making something greater than himself. We are not talking about those things. But anything which in itself is doable, and in Allah's essence there is no problem, so he can do it. قَدْ انْتَفَى الْمَانِعُ بِالنِّسْبَةِ إِلَى ذَاتِهِ. There is no obstacle, there is no problem with these things coming from his Zat. The Zat has no problem. Also, there is no problem بالنسبة إلى المقدور, the doable thing itself, the thing that you want to say whether God's power belongs to it or not, has no problem, because these are if they had problem, other people also could not do it. You know, when we can do something, it means that this is not contradiction. Otherwise, we were not also able to do it. If someone says, you know, Kabih is impossible, you say, no, Kabih is not impossible because we can do it. Kabih is not like 2 + 2 5. 2 + 2 5 is impossible. But Kabih is possible, and the best reason is we can do it. And some people do it. Okay? So, the action itself is possible. Allah's essence also has no problem, no obstacle. So, why you say his power doesn't belong to these things? But still we clarify further each of them. So, first he makes the claim, then he mentions 2 premises. One is that there is no obstacle with respect to his essence, and all these things are in themselves doable. And then he clarifies these 2. Amma bayanul awwal. Now the explanation of the first, which is there is no mane بالنسبة إلى ذاته. There is no obstacle, no barrier بالنسبة إلى his essence. فهو أن المقتضي لكونه تعالى قادرا. What deserves, what causes for his power to be there? Why Allah is powerful? It's his Zat. Yes? Al-Muqtadi لكونه تعالى قادرا. What is the thing that implies or causes his essence to be powerful? His Zat. There is nothing other than his Zat. هو ذاته. Okay. نسبتها إلى الجميع متساوية. God's essence with respect to all maqdurat has equal relation. Why? Because God's essence is simple, is basit, is not something that is multiple or differentiated. It's one single Zat, and the with respect to everything has equal relation. نسبتها means نسبة الذات إلى الجميع متساوية لتجردها, because his essence is mujarrad, it's not material, it's not compound. All the bad qualities that come because of limitation of material things are not there. فيكون مقتضاها أيضا متساويا النسبة. So when Zat has equal relation, what the Zat also implies, I don't want to say deserves. Here it's not good to say deserves. Inclines, you can say, or no, even incline is not good. Maybe entitles or implies something that God's essence entitles or is implying. That should be also equal. Why you say God cannot do this, but he can do that? Is there anything in God's essence that limits the power? There is no, kind of differentiation, no multiplicity in the essence of God. God is wajibul wujud bil dhat, and the relation of God with every mumkin is the same. Why you are excluding some mumkinat? So who is going to do those mumkinat? You understand? وَأَمَّا الثَّانِي. The second part of the argument was to say that maqdur, what is doable, is also without any obstacle. There is no problem in the maqdur. There is no problem in God's side. There is no problem in the maqdur side. If something is, for example, similar to what we do, why you say God's power does not belong to this? Is there any problem in this? If there was problem in this, even we were not able to do it. If, for example, it involved contradiction, if it was inconsistent, if it was absurd, we were not also able to do it. So there is no problem in this. There is no problem in God's essence. So why you say God cannot do this? If you want to say God does not will to do this, that's okay. But don't say God doesn't have power to do this. Okay? Amma thani. Thani was to say that there is no mane, there is no obstacle with respect to maqdur. فَلَأَنَّ الْمُقْتَذِي لِكَوْنَ الشَّيْءَ مَقْدُورًا هُوَ إِمْكَانُ. What causes, what implies for maqdur to be maqdur? The contingency, imkan. This contingency is essential for maqdur. Why you say when it comes to God, all of a sudden there is a problem in maqdur? If it is mumkin, it is mumkin. You cannot change the zat of contingent beings. Is it clear? فَلَأَنَّ الْمُقْتَذِي لِكَوْنَ الشَّيْءَ مَقْدُورًا. What causes or what implies, what entitles, this is imkan. To be maqdur, to be doable, is because of imkan. Because mumkin is doable. Wal imkan, contingency, mushtarak, is common. Bain al-kull, with respect to everything. فَتَكُونُ الصِّفَةُ الْمَغْدُورِيَّةِ إِذَنْ مُشْتَرَكًا بَيْنَ الْمُمْكِنَاتِ. So all the contingent beings should be possible to be done, should be doable. وَهُوَ الْمَطْلُوبُ. This is what we wanted to prove. إِذَنْ تَفَى الْمَانِعْ بِالنِّسْبَةِ إِلَى الْقَادِرِ وَبِالنِّسْبَةِ إِلَى الْمَقْدُورِ. When there is no problem, no barrier, no obstacle with respect to doable and with respect to God, so it means that the power of God should have no limit, should be including everything. Okay, His power embraces every possible thing. وَجَبَ تَعَلُّقُ الْعَامِ. So the belonging should be general. It's necessary to have inclusive belonging of power. It means that it should have inclusive a spectrum or a scope for His power. وَهُوَ الْمَطْلُوبُ. This is what we wanted to prove. This was our matlub, yeah? From the beginning we wanted to prove this. وَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا يَلْزَمُ مِنَ التَّعَلُّقِ الْوُقُوعِ. It seems some people didn't get this point. Therefore we clarify this for them. Be aware, be informed that when we say power of God belongs to everything, it doesn't require al-wuqu. It doesn't require that this is going to happen and God is going to do them. We say His power belongs to everything, but we are not saying God does everything. Is it clear? لا يلزم من التعلق الوقوع. It doesn't come out of belonging the occurrence. بل الواقع بقدرته تعالى هو البعث. What actually happens through the power of Allah is some of the maqdurat, not all the maqdurat. Can you tell me how much of maqdurat happens by God? It says, why less than half? I say exactly half.
Yeah, because it's either taraka or bidon.
Because every maqdur has two sides. Do it and not do it. God has to do one of them. So either he does it or doesn't do it. Both of them are possible. So he does 50%. Yes? He does 50%. Either he does this side or that side. Yes, if you mean by creating, that's another issue. But if you mean by choosing, he chooses half of it. But maybe the majority is the side of not doing. The minority is doing. But as far as choice is concerned, he has, even we have the choice of 50%. Yes? But what we actually do, maybe is 1 in trillion, what we do. Yes?
Can we say, because the ayat Quran says, بِيَدِهِ الْخَيْرِ, so we can say,
We?
بِيَدِهِ الْخَيْرِ. So we can say he only does 50% or half, which is khayr, and he doesn't do the 50% of khayr.
His power belongs to khair and shar. But what he does is khair. Yes.
So we can say the half is khayr.
Of course, it's always half is, one side is good, one side is bad. Yes, you can say it that. So, الواقع بقدرته تعالى هو البعض. What happens, what occurs, واقع means يقع, yeah? What occurs, what happens with his power is some, not all. وإن كان قادرا على الكل, although he has power over everything. والأشاعرة اتفقوا في عموم التعلق. Asharites agreed with us on the fact that his power belongs to everything. But وَدَّعُوا مَعَهُ الْوُقُوعِ. But they also claim that everything that he can do, he will do it. This is the problem. Because they want to attribute everything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كما سيأتي بيان ذلك إن شاء الله تعالى. Inshallah we will discuss this later. You know, when we talk about humans' actions and whether those actions are also actions of God or not, because Ashar believe that even our actions are created by God in the sense that we have no role. We are only the subject or the place or mawzu'. Allah creates his actions in us. This is nadariyatul kasb, acquisition. Inshallah we will talk about it later. So, I hope it's now clear that Allah's power belongs to everything. Why? Because everything which is doable is mumkin. So mumkin is mumkin, whether it's for God or for us is mumkin. So there is no limit in mumkin. There is no limit in his essence. So why you say God cannot do this mumkinat? If we can do it, God can do it. He doesn't do it, these don't happen, that's another issue. We don't want to say everything he can do, he will do it. But we say he can do it. His power is not limited. Now we move on to the second quality of God. After power, we talk about ilm. Wajibul wujud should have knowledge also. Ilm is one of the important qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You remember the ayah I recited for you from Surah Talaq? الله الذي خلق سبع سماوات ومن الأرض مثلهن يتنزل الأمر بينهن لتعلموا. First of all, the reason for creation is so that you know. لتعلموا. تعلموا what? أن الله على كل شيء قدير. We already showed that. وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. Now we are going to talk about his ilm. Okay? أنه تعالى عالم. The second point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable. He has knowledge. Why he has knowledge? There can be different arguments. The argument that Allah Mahalli develops here is, we say, these mumkinat in alam, these mumkinat in the world are created by Allah. And they show there must be knowledge in their creator. Because they show sophistication, they show order, they show design. They show also ikhtiyar. If if God was like sun and shining or like fire and burning, there was no ikhtiyar. You could have said he doesn't know. The fact that at a certain stage he created the world and the world is hardest, it means that he has will, and will requires knowledge. You know that you want to do something at certain time. Any agent, any fa'il which has will has knowledge. So, أنه تعالى عالم لأنه فعل الأفعال المحكمة المتقنة. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done the actions. What we mean by action? Creation, yeah? Because every act of God is a kind of creation. This is a very beautiful point. You cannot think of God doing anything except that is an action. And this is why one of the reasons for Tawheed of Rububiyyah is Tawheed fil Khaliqiyyah. Because you cannot think of God being our sustainer and our, for example, guide and everything, unless through creation. Because how is he going to give you rest? It's all related to creation. This is in discussion about Tawheed, we discussed this. Anyway, God has done actions, which means actions of creating, which are muhkam and mutqan, means they are firm and they are articulate. Ihkam and itqan means to do something properly, articulate. The hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the servant, that when he does something, yuhibbu abdan, Allah loves the servant, that when he does something, he atqanahu, he does it properly. Means do it in the way that it's firm, it's going to be stable, to be remaining, not something that is going to collapse after some time. So Allah has done actions which are firm, which are well thought through. وَكُلُّ مَنْ فَعَلَ ذَلِكَ فَهُوَ عَالِمٌ بِالضَّرُورَةِ. Whoever does something which is so well done and so, well thought through, he must be alim. When you look at a building, even if it is very simple building, you say this cannot be a result of accident. This cannot be created by chance. Yes? If you see a car, if you see a computer, if you see even a desk, you don't say this is a result of chance. You remember argument from design. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done these things which are with design, which are sophisticated, which are complex, and everyone who does this should have knowledge. This is this much that Allama Hadi says. Then he says, وَعِلْمُهُ يَتَعَلَّقُ بِكُلِّ مَعْلُومٍ. Then he talks about the scope of knowledge. Let's leave that for later, like Qudra. First prove the Qudra, we prove the Qudra, then we talked about the extent and the scope. Now we prove knowledge, then inshallah we'll talk about a scope. So that part inshallah we'll talk about it later. Now, we focus on proving that he has knowledge. How much? We talk about it later. Okay? أقول, I say. Fazil Mendad rahmatullah alayhi said this. من جملة الصفات الثبوتية. One of the affirmative qualities of God, كونه تعالى عالما, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable. وَالْعَالِمُ, what do we mean by alim? هُوَ الْمُتَّبَيِّنُ لَهُ الْأَشْيَاء. Alim is the one that things are clear for him. Okay? Tabayyun means they are clear. There is no absence, disappearance. Okay? بحيث تكون حاضرة عنده. What is there is present with. This is a very important concept. If you look at non-knowledgeable things, you see they have absence, they have no understanding of what is there. For example, even if I put my book on this desk, are you here? Yes? Because this is a very important discussion, benefits in other places. If I put my book on this desk, even if they touch each other, do you think this book is present for the desk? It's not present for the desk. Because the desk is not aware of this book. Whether this book is there or not, it doesn't have any impact on the desk. Okay? So, everything material is absent for another material thing. Even the book itself, with respect to its parts, the front cover and the back cover and the middle pages, they don't have any presence for each other. Okay? Therefore, you can say they don't have knowledge about each other. They don't have knowledge about what is around them. One side of it from the other side. Even they don't have knowledge about themselves. For example, the front cover doesn't have knowledge of the front cover. Even they are absent for themselves. But when we have knowledge, it means that what is known is present. I acknowledge the presence of something. Whether they exist or not makes difference. You know? For material things, whether another material thing exists or doesn't exist, it doesn't make any difference. Yes? If we leave this book here and we go out or we are here, it doesn't make any difference to the book. He doesn't say, no, I feel lonely, no, please don't leave me. Doesn't understand. But we understand. We understand whether something is with us or not with us, present or not present, we understand. This is a very important point. Yes.
Is this because of our immaterial nature that we have inside us that we're
Yes.
able to understand, yeah?
This is one of the ways to prove the immateriality of the soul. Because soul has knowledge, and knowledge is only for immaterial things, for مجردات. كل عاقل فهو مجرد. كل عالم فهو مجرد. There is no way to have knowledge or intelligence for material things. Okay. He says, العالم هو المتبين له الأشياء. Knowledgeable, the one that has knowledge is the one that أشياء, things are clear for it. بحيث تكون حاضرة عنده. They are present. You know, if you put something in front of a material thing, it's not presence. Yes? If I put something in front of this wall, I cannot say this is present for the wall, because the wall doesn't understand. Even wall is not present for itself. Okay? So they are clear, they are present. غير غائبة عن. They are not absent. They are not absent for it. So, this is the meaning of alim. Another term that we have to define, because we always define the terms and then we go to the argument. What is al-fi'l al-muhkam al-mutqan? The fi'l which is action which is firm and it's well done. It's done in an articulate way. هو المشتمل على أمور غريبة عجيبة. Something which is not very, ordinary. Something which shows kind of uniqueness. Ajiba means something which is strange, but not in a bad sense. We like wonders. In Arabic we say ajaib. Ajaib sab'ah. 7 wonders. Something which is not too common, too ordinary. Gharib means also something which is not very common. Okay? Because if something is too common, then you can say doesn't need knowledge. But when something is special, it's done in a very careful way, then it shows there must be knowledge. وَالْمُسْتَجْمِعُ لِخَوَاصٍ كَثِيرَةٍ. Something which has many properties or many effects. If there is just a piece of wood, you say maybe this is brought here by a child. But when you see this is made into a bookshelf, into a table, into a chair, with which you can do many, many things. There are many khawas, there are many effects, many, properties, many things that it can do, then this cannot be without knowledge. So this is only to clarify the term alim and the term muhkam and mutqan. Let's go to the argument. وَالدَّلِيلُ عَلَىٰ كَوْنِهِ عَالِمًا وَجْهَانًا. There are 2 arguments to prove that he is knowledgeable. How many? 2. The first is this. أَنَّهُ مُخْتَارٌ وَكُلُّ مُخْتَارٍ عَالِمٌ. I mentioned 2 arguments when I was explaining. The fact that Allah is mukhtar shows that He wills and then He creates. It's not like sun and shining, fire and burning. So it means that there must be knowledge. Because He knows when to do this. He's aware. If He was not aware, it's definitely mujab. You remember I said mujab is either without knowledge or with knowledge, but knowledge has no impact. But mukhtar, definitely with knowledge. I gave you all the examples. Remember? Without knowledge, like what?
Fire.
fire and
Sun.
sun and cat. You remember about cat? I said if you ask cat what you are doing. Yes? So, and with knowledge, like what? A person who is falling down from top of a building. He knows what is happening, but he cannot do anything. This is also mujab. Okay? But mukhtar is the one who certainly has knowledge, and knowledge is influential, has some role. So, we said Allah is mukhtar. وَكُلُّ مُخْتَارٍ عَالٍ. Why Allah is mukhtar? أَمَّا الصُّغْرَى, the minor premise. Why Allah is mukhtar? We proved it last week. لَقَدْ مَرَّ بَيَانُهَا. Yes? We talked about it before. أَمَّا الْكُبْرَى, the major premise. And that is every mukhtar is alim. Why every mukhtar is alim? فَلَأَنَّ فِعْلَ الْمُخْتَارِ تَابِعٌ لِقَصْدِهِ. The action of one which is willing, has will, has freedom, follows his will. Okay? And this needs knowledge. وَيَسْتَحِيلُ قَصْدُ شَيْئًا مِنْ دُونِ الْعِلْمِ بِهِ. How can you will something without knowing it? Can you will something without knowing it? Not. You have to know. There is no way to will something, there is no way to want something, to desire something without knowing. You remember I gave you a story of the young person who said to his parents, for marriage. Yes? So he said that, I have fallen in love, please, arrange my marriage. So they said, if you have really fallen in love, then okay, we do something for you. Who is that person? He said, any person. Anyone that you find for me. He just wanted to get married. So we said, this doesn't make sense. You cannot say you have fallen in love with an unknown person. Okay? You cannot do cast of unknown reality. You must have at least some knowledge. So, يَسْتَحِيلُ قَصْدُ شَيْءٍ. It's impossible to desire, to will something مِنْ دُونَ الْعِلْمِ بِهِ. Okay? So now I ask you a question. How do you answer? Sometimes people come out of home and you ask them, where are you going? They say, I don't know. I just wanted to come out. So if they tell you, then this person has been walking without qasd, what do you say? It's not mujab. He doesn't have any destination in mind. He doesn't have any place, necessarily in mind. He just is coming out and going, or driving.
It's not purposeful.
Pardon?
It's not purposeful.
It's purposeful. You cannot move without. How can you walk without purpose?
He still has the qudra to do so.
Yeah, but he doesn't have knowledge.
Behaves
Or he has
like
knowledge.
Alzheimer's disease.
So what he has. Pardon?
You have knowledge to make
Alzheimer's disease.
Yes. The answer is that in this case, still he has qasd. Sometimes your qasd, your intention is to go to a particular place. Sometimes your intention is not to be in a particular place, no matter where you go. You just don't want to be here. Okay? So, there is qasd. If you just want to be not here, it doesn't matter where you go. But there is qasd. Okay. So, يستحيل قصد شيء من دون العلم به. الثاني, the second argument. The second argument is what Allama Hilli mentioned. أنه فعل الأفعال المحكمة المتقنة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done the actions which are very firm, very detailed. You know, this ihkam also we have it about Quran. Kitabun uhkimat ayatuh. Yes? Or منها آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب. محكم means firm. أنه فعل الأفعال المحكمة المتقنة وكل من كان فعله كذلك فهو عالم بذلك. Whoever you imagine that his actions are muhkam, he must have knowledge. Now again we explain each of them. أما أنه فعل ذلك. Why you say Allah has done muhkam actions, actions which are firm and good? أنه فعل ذلك فظاهر لمن تدبر مخلوقاته. Whoever ponders on creatures of God would realize that this is sophisticated, it has order, it has design. Yes? Look at Ebel, look at mountains, look at أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل or أما أنه فعل ذلك means he has done أفعال محكم فظاهر, this is obvious لمن تدبر مخلوقاته, for whoever ponders on his creatures. Let's have a very quick look at the creatures of God. أما السماوية, those creatures which are in a sky, in heaven, like stars, planets. أما السماوية, means those things which are in heaven, heavenly, but not heaven in the sense of paradise, a sky. فبما يترتب على حركاتها. You see, this movement of sun around earth and then moon, it makes for us days and nights and weeks and months and seasons. Yes? And very accurate. Even now you can calculate for 1,000 years. Yes? You can calculate moon eclipse, all these things. فبما يترتب على حركاتها من خواص الفصول الأربعة. All the properties, all the qualities of 4 seasons depends on these movements of the objects which are in the sky. وكيفية نفذ تلك الحركات وأوضاع, the order and the conditions of them. هو مبين في فن, in the science which is related to this in its own particular field, this is all clear, explained. أما الأرضية, on the earth, on our own planet, again everything is coming with design. فبما يظهر من حكمة المركبات الثلاث. If you look at the wisdom behind creation of 3 compounds or combinations. Murakkab means compound or combination. Maybe it means non-living beings like minerals, plants and animals. In the English translation has translated Murakkabat al-Thalas as this: minerals, plants and animals. So whether you look at non-living beings or vegetables or animals, you see order in all of them. وَالْأُمُورِ الْغَرِيبَةِ الْحَاصِلَةِ فِيهَا. What special things happen if you study minerals, if you study plants, Even there is no single thing in this world that we can say we have understood everything about it. Still, we don't know that much. All the also khawas, all the properties or all the effects that they have. We make medicine sometimes from the thing that people thought it's useless, but now they make medicine. All khawas which are there in the herbs and all these things. We discussed this in Burhan. لو لم يكن إلا في خلق الإنسان. Suppose we didn't have any animal, any plant, any minerals. We just had human beings. And suppose also human being was just body. That was by itself enough.
Indeed.
Even if we had only one organ, like eye. This is enough to say that this must be created by knowledgeable creator. لو لم يكن إلا في خلق الإنسان لكفى الحكمة المودعة في إنشائه وترتيب خلقه وحواسه وما يترتب عليها من المنافع. Had it not been only for creation of human being, it was sufficient to say that there must be wisdom which has been put in, there is wisdom that is there in the creation of human being, in arranging the creation of human beings. Where should be eye, where should be mouth, where should be ear, all these things. Our senses, hawas, our senses, and all the benefits that come as a result. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says, أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Have not they pondered and thought about themselves? مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. He has not created the skies and the earth and what is between them except with the observation of truth. We had this discussion in Akhlaq, that the creation is based on truth. فَإِنَّ مِنَ الْعَجَائِبِ الْمُودَعَةِ فِي بُنْيَةِ الْإِنسَانِ أَنَّ كُلَّ عُضْوٍ مِنْ أَعْضَائِهِ لَهُ قُوًى أَرْبَعَةٍ. One of the very special things is that all organs of human body has 4 types of power, 4 types of faculty, 4 types of function. جاذبة وماسكة وهاضمة ودافع. Of course, if you know modern biology and physiology, you can know better these things. But according to the, natural sciences of that time, so he says every part of our body has these 4 capacities or functions. One is jadhiba. They can absorb, because our body is always losing. So you have to replace. Like if you, for example, if you don't put things in your fridge, then after a few days it becomes empty because it goes away. So you have to put. Our body is always losing. The cells are dying. Also evaporation of water. All these things. So jaziba is, because time is short, I just explain it. I don't read it. Jaziba is to absorb so that you can compensate for what has been lost. Masika is to keep. So jaziba brings in, takes it. Masika keeps it. Okay, it's very important that you keep it, to preserve it. Hadima is digested. And dafi'a is to get rid of the waste and what is not needed, or So every part is doing this. When the blood is circulated in kidney, in eye, in heart, in muscles, in bones, they have the ability to take from blood. They take what is useful, they keep it, they digest it, and the fuzulat, the waste, they get rid of it. So this is the system.
What's the meaning of mawda'a?
Muda'a
Yes.
means it's deposited there, it's put there. Vadi'a, have you heard vadi'a?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
Muda'a
Huh?
means it's deposited there, it's put there.
Positive.
Okay, so he explains these 4.
Deposit.
Wa'amma, I just read this line to finish. أما أن كل من فعل الأفعال المحكمة المتقنة فعالم. So the first premise was to say that this world is muhkam. We mentioned the example of human body, stars, all these things. Second, كل من فعل الأفعال المحكمة المتقنة فعالم. Why? This is self-evident. Whoever does something which is so articulate like human body, like stars, has to be knowledgeable. فهو بديهي لمن زاول الأمور وتدبرها. For everyone who engages in this, reflects on this, ponders on this, this is self-evident. So, alhamdulillah, we finished this part. Not what we have to go to the extent of knowledge. Does Allah's knowledge belong to everything, or there are things that His knowledge, when we say His knowledge belongs to everything, but inshallah next session. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله. Yes.